New York Immigration Coalition's offices. I'm Mika Anand. I am the Census 2020 Senior Fellow here at New York Immigration Coalition. In that role, I'm also facilitator and convener of New York Counts 2020, the statewide coalition of nonprofits working on a fair and accurate count for the census. And we are thrilled to be co-hosting this event with New York City Census as we talk about the importance of the census for the South Asian community here in New York City. The format of today will be as follows. I'm going to give a few remarks, and then I'll be asking each of my fellow panelists here to give a few remarks about who they are, their community, and how they're working on the census. And then there'll be one follow-up question for me for each of them, and then we will open it up for you to ask any questions you may have. As you know, on March 12th, the mailers for the census will start going out. By March 20th, we expect that every household in the United States will have received an invitation to complete the census, either online or by paper or on the telephone. What is at stake? Money, power, and respect. My panelists will be my fellow panelists will be elaborating on that. And what is at stake for the South Asian community? It's the same thing. What is at stake for the South Asian community is also money, power, and respect, but the South Asian community faces certain barriers that we need to be able to speak to and overcome in order that we ensure that our community gets the resources it needs and has the representation it so richly deserves. So with that as a starting point, Kazi, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and your organization and tell us a bit about why you think this work is so important.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kazi Fauzia. I'm working with DRUM. Currently, I'm doing census manager duty with DRUM. So this is really important for us as a DRUM, our member from South Asia, working class South Asian community here in New York and largely undocumented. So this is really important for us because 2010 data showed we are only 30,000 Bangladeshi. I don't know the exact number for Pakistani community, Indian community, and Nepali community as well below. So when number-wise, we are actually more like a 10 times more than here, but we are in the like a count data showed we are below. So this is our duty to do counting, help our community to counting this time. We know a lot of obstacle and barrier, or a lot of isolation our communities is mine. Like undocumented community think they are not supposed to be counted. Green card people say, oh no, I'm not a citizen, why am I supposed to be counted? Citizen people, when we do outreach, when we go door to door, event to event, we actually distribute a lot of flyer, even multilingual flyer. People say, I'm a citizen, I'm already, government know I'm here. I have already Medicare, they know I'm here, why am I supposed to be counted? We have to fight a lot with them to understand census, you have to be count yourself, is not like a government, like automatic count you. Green card people think, oh, I'm not a voter, why is supposed to be counted? And think about undocumented community, what's going with them? People who live in basement, landlord don't allow them to get their mail. You are not allowed to like use our mail system because my basement is not legalized. So many people who share house, who live with other people, so many border person who think they are really the community who is supposed to be living in the shadow. So this is the community, this is the members we working with, so that's our high responsibility this time, work for census and our community counted, and we have enough city resource. We don't have to long line in the hospital, school system, subway system, everywhere our community need to be the good access. So that's why I think it's very important as an organizer, as a community organizer, as an organization, we need to do it.
Thank you, Kazi. Alia.
Thank you so much. My name is Alia Bhatia. I'm the census manager for the Association for Better New York, or ABNY for short. ADME is a 50-year-old organization that, among other things, is working on the census to coordinate strategy and action between lots of different stakeholders, including the government, labor, the private sector, and civil society. So part of our work has been conducting a number of focus groups. We've hosted a series of focus groups with partners, including the Asian American Federation, DRUM, and a lot of other organizations. And one thing that these focus groups kind of gleaned was that there are lots of different barriers and ways that South Asian and Indo-Caribbean community is resonating with the census. And so one of the primary fears around the census is the privacy issue, right? Is this data going to be used against me, and where is this data used? This concept of the government knocking on your door scares a lot of community members because, as Kazi mentioned, there is a growing undocumented and differently multi-status households in the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean communities. One of the other things that came up multiple times is, how does the census benefit me if I'm not a recipient of so-called public programs? So explaining to our community that the census is not only about money to programs like food stamps, like Section 8 housing that many of our community members use, but also helps kind of the quality of life that you benefit from in New York. Things like how many potholes are on the street, your roads, your parks, your healthcare organizations, your schools, how many seats are there in the classrooms. And one thing that we also spoke about was when our community pushes for things like Diwali being a school holiday in New York City, which is something that we're talking about now, that the community and advocates use census data to make that argument. Lack of representation was also a huge thing in a barrier in our focus groups, and also the fact that businesses also use census data. Businesses use census data to bring jobs to our communities, to bring services to our communities, to grow their businesses themselves, and receive loans from government organizations. So understanding that it's not only government, but businesses can also benefit from a fair and accurate count. One example of that is the Runway just expanded its offerings to include basic, wedding attire. So mentioning, that the census and count of everyone really helps a lot of different stakeholders. Thank you.
Good morning, Sasrikal. I'm Amit Bagga. I'm the Deputy Director of NYC Census 2020, which is the Mayor's Census Office. Thank you so much to Mita and New York Immigration Coalition for co-hosting this event today with us, and thank you so much to my fellow panelists. Very excited to be here today to represent the Mayor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our operation is and why the Mayor has made the investment that he has made this year in the census. As you already know, the census is so critically important to our city's present and to our city's future, and to all communities in our city, and in particular the South Asian community. Our fair share of hundreds of billions of dollars for schools, for hospitals, job training, roads and bridges, healthcare, so many different things that we rely on every day are all at stake with the census. If we are not fully counted in the census, we will lose out on our fair share and what is rightfully ours. As many of you know, of course, our congressional representation, the power of our voice in Congress, is also based on the census. Following the 2010 census, the state of New York lost seats in the House of Representatives, meaning we lost power in the House of Representatives. We stand to lose up to 2 congressional seats following the next census if we don't have a complete count. So it's really critically important that in order to get the resources that are rightfully ours and the representation that is rightfully ours, that we are counted. And in addition to that, as Mita mentioned earlier, the census is about respect. It's about the government and the entire country and all of us being able to know who exactly we are. The census tells the story of who we are. New York City and the South Asian community in New York City today is very different than it was 50 years ago when my parents first came to New York. Where we live, what languages we speak, the jobs that we do. It's much more diverse. It's much bigger than it used to be. But we can't tell that story effectively, and we can't tell that story completely if we're not counted in the census. And so that's why the mayor has made a historic $40 million investment in the census this year. This is the largest investment being made by any city anywhere in the country. And as part of this investment, we are essentially investing in the city in 4 different ways. Number one, we have created a $19 million Complete Count Fund, which is a community-based grants program through which we have given grants to 157 different organizations that are involved in doing different types of work all over the community. This includes healthcare access, organizing, in community engagement in a lot of different ways. Of the New York City Complete Count Fund, approximately 12% of the organizations that we have granted to are serving the South Asian community, and that's the whole South Asian community. Number two, we have an in-house field operation consisting of about 20 to 30 staff that is engaged in what you might think looks like a little bit like an electoral campaign. They do community organizing all over the city. They work with community leaders, houses of worship, community boards, local organizations to make sure that everyone knows about the census, understands the importance of the census, is trained on how to get involved, and ultimately is participating. Number three, we are engaging in many different types of partnerships. We have a unique access to 89 different city agencies that serve New Yorkers every single day. They employ 350,000 people. So by being situated in the mayor's office, we have a unique ability to reach all of those New Yorkers very directly. And of course, we are working very closely with labor, with houses of worship, with business, and with community-based organizations. And lastly, very quickly, we are running an $8 million media campaign. You are going to start seeing our advertising coming out very soon. It's going to be in a multitude of languages, including all of the different South Asian languages. And of this, we are investing $3 million in local and ethnic media, which is the largest investment in the city's history in local and ethnic media. And the reason we are doing this is precisely to fight the fear, to fight the misinformation, the disinformation, and the barriers that all of my fellow panelists will be talking about. Thank you.
Namaste, my name is Narmada. I'm working at Adhikar as a Director of Organizing and Program. So in 2010, from the Nepali community, we were the first organization who worked for the census. And it was very hard and very new for us, but we try our best. One thing that, as Kaji mentioned, we also suffering the same thing from the community, because those who have green card and citizen, they don't care, and those who have undocumented and they scared to give their information. So that, and within this 10 to 20, I have a lot of experience. I would like to share one example, because census importance, because the hospital, school, and one of our worker, while she was working with her employer, all of a sudden she fell down, and her employer took her to the hospital, and she came back, and she could not speak Nepali, she could not speak English, and the hospital provided her Hindi, and even she could not speak Hindi, so that she got the different wrong medicine. Yeah, and I think wherever the city meetings invite us, then I always raise when they ask, you don't have numbers. That's why we started for census work March 2019. And still, this is very hard to educate our community, because we have now a new community, and they are thinking, oh, why this is, and the citizen question also make them fear, because everyone, they don't have access for the news. So then now public charge, because all our workers, all our community are not aware all these things that the citizen question is already gone. They took out, but still we need to educate. Oh, there is no citizen question, so that's why we have also difficult and hard to count and to aware our community. So then we prepared our place card in Nepali, and here is, I place to fill out the census because I care all these things, the housing. So this is the one thing to educate them, why the census is important. affordable housing, immigration, school, hospital, transportation, and that's why now, maybe this year, we are going to able to get whatever our goal.
Hello, I'm the Census Outreach Manager with the Asian American Federation. We are a leadership nonprofit with over 70 Asian immigrants serving community-based organizations that call themselves members. And we also work with a lot of community partners like Drum and Chaya as well. We are the only census information center in the Northeast for Asian communities, and so we have that designation by the Census Bureau. We're on the steering committee for the Asian Pacific American Complete Count Committee, and we're also a citywide partner with New York City Census Office. The reason why we're so involved with the census is because we use census data to publish reports on the state of the Asian American community here in New York City. We've published reports on poverty, mental health, just anything that we think should get the attention of not just the city government and the state government, but also the federal government. My focus has been, so even though the Asian American Federation is based here in New York City, the census program is different in that it's all over New York State and also in parts of New Jersey. And what we're doing is focusing on Asian immigrant communities, Asian refugee communities, limited English proficient individuals, low-income individuals, and also the elderly and new immigrants who might not have been here for the last census, but also people who were here for the last census and missed it because they didn't know what it was. So we are meeting with these groups to talk to them about not just what the census is and the different challenges, but also to hear what they think the challenges are or what they're seeing on the ground, because I can go into a community, but I have no idea what's actually happening there because I'm not a part of the community. And we're also paying attention to this because Asian Americans are the fastest growing population here, not just in New York City and New York State, but also in the country. And the subgroup is South Asians. But the Census Bureau released a report saying that Asian Americans are the least likely to complete the form. And that's something we're not willing to accept. And we're going to work tirelessly until the end of July to get as many of our communities counted as possible.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Asya. I work for Engage. We're the largest national nonprofit focused on Muslim civic engagement. I'm the New York Census Director, and the 2020 census was really important to Engage because we were very concerned about sort of national policies that appear anti-immigrant, Islamophobic, the Muslim ban. We knew our community was going to be concerned, and especially in New York City, previously the NYPD had utilized publicly available census data to surveil Muslim communities. So we knew we had a huge barrier to overcome so the community could understand that. So we've been really focused on building the community understanding of the value of the census and how impactful it is to the community and understanding what to expect, but also what benefit there is. So the biggest one, actually the best example, has been the fact that we use census data to advocate for Eid holidays, and communities across the nation are using that same census data. But then I give even more specific examples. So for example, I did aging policy previously, and the Department for the Aging recognized there was a growing older adult Bangladeshi population in a community. So when they did contracting as a city, they required that the senior centers provide Bangladeshi language and cultural access in those community centers. And those are being utilized to provide halal lunches in senior centers and schools. And so by being able to show that we are here and the numbers that actually do exist in our communities, we're able to better advocate for better city services that meet our community's needs.
So just to add to such rich information already shared, so my name is Ananta Sicharan. I'm the Executive Director of Chaya Community Development Corporation, serving the Pan-South Asian community as well as the Indo-Caribbean community. I've had about 20 years of work in the community, serving previously as the Executive Director for South Asian Youth Action. And what I want to say from that experience is that I've seen firsthand how the census impacts what, from a service delivery perspective, is available and what we're able to provide, and how we are able to make the case for our work. And I think I speak for all of the organizations. I mean, my colleagues have spoken compellingly about, investments in the big infrastructural things like hospitals and roads, et cetera, and schools. But from a social service perspective, it very much determines like the case we're able to make on a day-to-day basis to validate our work. And so, we find ourselves having to like pull, data from here and there and sort of, cobble it together to make a compelling case. So I cannot even like articulate strongly enough how critically important this is for our community. And I think everybody on this panel would probably say that this is certainly one of our top priorities. I see this amongst all the other things that we have to do as truly like the most critical thing facing us as a collective. I wanted to share a couple pieces of data to further illustrate what my colleagues were saying. APIP did a study that shows that 38% of Asian Americans are not familiar with the census, which is like deeply troubling. And that's for the entire Asian community. We know that South Asians, the numbers are probably higher. And again, when, having to say we know South Asians, I find is something I'm always having to say because there's just not enough data on our communities. And then there's another piece of data that indicates that 24% of Asians, again, this is the pan-Asian community, say that they are deeply concerned that the information shared on the census will have a negative impact on them. Perhaps because of documentation reasons, or they don't trust the government, or for, a whole host of reasons. And so, stacking all of this together and also looking at very hyperlocal data, such as certain districts that are predominantly South Asian and Indo-Caribbean. We know that last go around had the lowest self-response rates. So Chaya has chosen to focus on District 28 for this census because the last time around, this district had the lowest response rate. We know that Queens ranks this second from the bottom in self-reporting. So, cobbling all of that together, we know that the risk for undercount for the Pan-South Asian Indo-Caribbean community is really significant. And so it's going to take every possible effort, your work to sort of get the information out there, and our work to do the organizing and continue to reach the community in many different ways.
Thank you, Annetta. I want to emphasize something that should be obvious to everyone in this room, but I'll state it anyway. We are all South Asians on this panel, and we're all working on the census here in New York City. And we also just represent a subset of the group of people we know. So if we did invite everyone we knew that was South Asian working on the census in New York City, there would not be room for you in this room to join us. So I think it's a real testament to our community to recognize the importance of the census and that it is actually a pan-South Asian experience, as Annetta so eloquently put it. Behind this, we have specific things we need to do. We need to overcome people's desire to not fill it out. Maybe they think it doesn't apply to them. It's an intention question. And then we have to make it something that people can actually do and understand. That's like an action question and a language question behind that. The Census Bureau does have language videos in 59 languages, including South Asian languages, which is great. APIA just released a bunch of videos in various Asian languages that are census explainer videos. I bring this up as examples of ways we can reach the community because there are so many different facets to this. So I want to delve into a few more of these facets, and we'll go in the reverse order this time, to be fair. Annetta, I know you're focusing specifically on District 28, but like with Chaya's background in community development, one of the concerns Kaji raised was around specifically housing-related concerns. Like, how do you message to the communities that regardless of who you are and what your living situation is, that you need to be counted?
So I think that New York City believes that having trusted entities delivering the message is probably the most effective ways, especially in light of all the reasons our communities have to not trust the government. So I don't think there's like one singular approach. I think it's, for us at Chaya, our strategy is that every single individual who comes to Chaya for services, and we serve approximately 3,000 individuals annually, they get a census message. And so it's going to take multiple touch points. And in language. So one of the things also that is important to note is that the census is not being translated in any South Asian language. So this is really problematic. And so it's really important for us to continue to convey in different ways the critical importance of the census. Just like any other campaign, as Amit referenced, it's a campaign. Right? And people respond to a campaign if they hear the information multiple times in different ways, right?
Asya, with your background in civic engagement, can you elaborate a bit more on how the census provides representation and how people use it as civic engagement?
No, I hear you. So, in 2016, we saw that your vote counts and elections have consequences that we are living with for hopefully just 4 years. But the census, being counted in census, it matters, and that results of that 2020 census is something that we'll be living with for 10 years. And after the census, they actually go through a redistricting, both at the federal level, but also at the state assembly and state senate and city council level, to decide which districts will be our representatives based on population changes and growths. Amit touched upon the fact that we're at risk of losing two Congress people, but I would say to you that the census is a really great opportunity for communities that are mobilizing, and that we have enclaves to think about where they exist and if there's an opportunity to help create districts that are more representative of those communities. We know that there's pockets of Bangladeshi communities in certain areas, or Pakistani or other South Asian communities, and I have really spoken to the communities about if you want to see potentially either a future first Bangladeshi city council member, you may want to sit there and think about using the census as a way that you can then advocate for a district that represents that community. And I think that's gotten people really interested and really excited. So,
Miriam, you spoke a lot about how you try to do outreach to people with limited English proficiency. Tell us a bit about what that looks like and what resources are available to those communities.
Sure. I can give an example for just the trip that I just made to Buffalo. I was in Buffalo Friday and Saturday working with Karen refugees from Burma. They prefer not to be called Burmese, and so we must respect that, right? And call them however they identify. So the Karen refugees in Buffalo speak Karen, but also Kareni, and then there's the Chin community that speaks Chin, and then we also had invited Nepalese refugees from the area who speak Nepalese, and then there were some Bhutanese folks there as well. So we had the flyer translated in multiple languages. I worked with an organizer who obviously is not just bilingual, multilingual, so she speaks Karen, Burmese, and English. And we were able to get volunteer interpreters to make sure that everyone who participated understood what was being shared. And it was really lovely. And people, when we had the Q&A session, people raised their hands, and then they asked questions in whichever language they were comfortable asking questions in, and we made sure that, so I responded in English to make sure that whoever spoke English and none of the other languages understood, but then we had the interpreters translate to get the message across in as many languages as we needed to. And what I think is just really important with the community work and messaging is we need to make sure we do more listening than talking. When we go out and do this, yes, I'm familiar with the challenges. I can list the challenges. I can give you some strategies. But what I learned just from Saturday, the biggest challenge that the current community is facing with the census is they're actually not getting hired by the Census Bureau. And we had a Census Bureau rep there to address that, because that's something I also want to know. We talk about language access being an issue. We talk about hiring or getting community leaders involved with census. So why are we not hiring them? And why are we not putting them out there to communicate this information as the trusted leaders?
Narpada, to follow on what Miriam was saying, what is it that you are hearing from your community as to whether or not they intend to fill out the census, and what is concerning to them or not?
No, now, so compared to 2010, we are in good position because every day, every night, we are working for census. And we are not only for Nepali, we are working for the Tibetan community also,
Right.
because in 2010, just 5,000 Nepali is in the census number, and there is no number for Tibetan. So that's why we are working for Nepali and Tibetan. And I'm very happy that due to our successfully advocacy, this time census also create the flyer, everything in Nepali, no need to tell them. And they create the PCA, and we dub in our own language, in our way. So how the people understand easily, right? And then we create everything our own way. We did not wait the census money, city money, because we focus and we center with the community. Because we provide the service every day, and we know our community, what they really need, and how the government works. So census number is determined everything. So that's why, so our education and the advocacy is most important to convince them. So we already entered 2,000 census place card, and we have more than 500 to entry. So that's why I think all the communities are interested to volunteer. We hire more than 100 volunteers. Yeah, so now community is helping us, and we have one media, Sampreshan Saileji, and he is also doing his own way. So other media is also working. So all the community is engaging, but there is challenge. Yeah, I'm not going to tell what the challenge. At the end, I'm going to tell the challenge. Only in the June, not now.
Amit, everyone has alluded to the citizenship question and fears around privacy. I think you can clarify for us that there is no citizenship question. You can repeat that. I know I asked people not to repeat what was said, but I think that's worth repeating. And can you tell us, like, why should we all feel protected and that our information is protected and confidential?
Thank you. Yes, there's no citizenship question
thank you.
on the census. Please make sure that you lead with that in your reporting. It is very important. Before I answer your question directly, I just briefly want to say one quick point, which is that here on this panel, you see that there are so many of us who represent South Asia. We represent every part of South Asia. We represent many different countries. We represent many different ethnicities, many different religions, which is very important. And we have a united front here. And so I want that to also be one of the messages that you are taking back to your viewers and your readers, that as South Asians leading the work here in New York City on the census, we have a completely united front. I also just want to take a very quick second to recognize Fahad Ahmed, who's the executive director of DRUM, who's also here with us today. So to answer your question, so the City of New York, along with the State of New York and the New York Immigration Coalition and a number of partners, successfully sued the Trump administration on the citizenship question. We took them all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said very clearly that the addition of the citizenship question was unconstitutional, the way in which it was done was wrong, and they threw it out. So, in terms of the privacy of your responses to the census data, excuse me, to the census questions, there are only 10 questions on the census. They're pretty straightforward, they're pretty simple. All of your responses are completely protected by one of the strongest federal privacy laws that exists. It's called Title 13. It's actually worth knowing the name because then you can talk about it. Title 13 makes it very clear that the Census Bureau must keep all of your responses completely confidential. They cannot share them with anybody else, not any other government agency, not immigration, not any sort of law enforcement, not the tax authorities. they can't even share it back with the city of New York or even with a landlord. So if you are someone who's living in a basement unit or you're living with friends or family members, you should completely respond to the census, and you should know that that information can never be used against you. It does not matter what your documentation status is. The census does not ask about it, and even if you're undocumented, that information is never collected by the census and cannot be used against you. The penalty for breaking this law is up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines. That's very important to know. Since Title 13 was updated and passed in the mid-1950s, that provision of Title 13 has never been broken. And the reason for that is because there is a very powerful incentive in the penalties for every single Census Bureau employee to comply with the law. So we say very loudly, very clearly, everything, all the responses collected by the Census Bureau are completely confidential, and every New Yorker should have a very high degree of confidence in knowing that their information is protected.
Thank you, Amit. Alia, you shared with me at some point your personal reasons for participating in this project. Would you be willing to share that with everyone today?
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't know our conversations. No, I'm joking. So personally, I think you mentioned this very well, but the census is the story we're going to tell about this country, not only today, but in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and generations to come. The census is essentially a snapshot, a self-portrait of the nation and who makes up it. And personally, as a non-citizen of the United States, I came here on a visa to study in the United States as an international student. I think it is a way for me to give back to the many things New York offers me, right? A great standard of living, a great community of diverse voices and people and backgrounds, great parks, great schools, great flourishing communities, and a place where people can start their own businesses, raise a family, and do a lot of things. And so for me, I think participating in the census is a way to, act and kind of give back without political participation necessarily to a party, and without the right to vote right now. And I think the reason that's so important is because we must know that not only is it urgent for us, the South Asian community, to complete the census, because we're here, we live here, we matter, we count, but there's also a sense of urgency because we are a growing community. So lots of the panel members have mentioned that we're one of the most rapidly growing communities. We're also most rapidly diversifying communities. We have members, obviously the South Asian diaspora represents a lot of different countries, but we are growing not necessarily because, of America's beauty and, great importance in the world, but because of also a rise of xenophobia in the region. We're growing because of climate change, and we have immigrants and newcomers coming to this country every single day from the South Asian diaspora. So reflecting that not only in the census, but in our census messaging is going to be critical. And I think, just to also build on some of the points made is not only is this room full of trusted messengers through media, through community-based organizations, through just involved community leaders in your neighborhood, but we all know other trusted messengers and members, whether it's the aunties in your community, whether it's your mothers, whether also the men in the community, and faith leaders, our imams, our priests and all that. It's important to empower them to also share the importance of the census. In our focus groups also, we found that positive messaging often works better than negative messaging. So instead of saying do this or else, saying the census brings money and resources to the communities we live in. If you're comparing your community to another in New York City, we can also have that if we fill out this one simple form. And again, also sharing these messages on every platform, not only one-on-one and in the mosques and in the temples and in the other, community houses, but also on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on text messages, on your weekly calls, your Sunday dinners. YouTube is a huge channel for our community based on our focus groups. So if you're making a video or sharing this video on YouTube, census.
Kazi, I have a two-part question for you, I'm sorry. But one is, what sort of messaging works with the undocumented community? And secondly, I don't think we've touched on the fact that no matter who you are, children are also one of the most undercounted. So how do we address that fact, and does that help in talking with the undocumented community?
How many minutes we have?
Well, we'll give you 4. How about that?
Good. So first, the undocumented community. I have also my personal story why my life and death now census, because I'm thinking now to June, I'm not going to communicate it well even my back home family. I'm single here, my all family back home. I tell my family, don't talk with me too much. I'm very focused on census now because this is my life and death. Because why I'm telling this? 2010 I'm here. I came this country 2008 as undocumented immigrant, and I shared house with one family in Woodside, and I saw census, and I asked my landlady, should I part of the census? She said, no, you are undocumented. You live a little room share with us, and you are not allowed to do the census. But I helped Drum that time to knock the door in Woodside and Sunnyside and help people, Bengali people, language like a census worker. So that time in my mind, last 10 years I am taking subway, going to hospital as undocumented. Obviously 4 years I take services from Elmas Hospital, for Jamaica Hospital, and I'm not part of census. I'm not counted. My resource did not came. I actually took other people's resources that 10 years. So that hurts me a lot. That feel guilt me to take other people's resources and benefit and privilege actually as a citizen now to actually last 10 years. So this is my giving back time to the community and help my community be counted. And the second thing, the children, my message actually, whatever the material I create when I go to my community and people want to know who should be counted, I say, the children who born today, the people who did not die today. All people need to be counted. That's the rule, no matter what is your status are. So I'm going to talk something about the undocumented community and the messaging, what about the challenges I'm facing now in the community. When citizenship question we fight very hardly and take away and we celebrate, that time we feel now very easy to do the census. Not true. Because lot of fear. Every single day this administration tweets something, says something, and our ethnic media publish something. This is the fear. This is the fear in the community because of the negative news media put. Like a Como surrender with the ISIS, Como will give undocumented people information, green light driving license. Not true. People have fear. That kind of fear actually reduce undocumented community to be part of census. Be careful with this. Another message, which one we are very clearly people giving. When I go, people say, you don't have to talk with me. I don't need to sign your place card. When people knock my door, I'm going to do my census. No dear, this time nobody will knock your door until you did not count yourself. This will be tax census, 75% tax census, you have to count yourself. You will get the mail, then you have to open the mail, you have to go online, you have to count yourself. Let you know this is tax census. And I'm very clearly tell community, this is not census. Some people say, I already done my census when? So I CDC do out this so and so. So I counted. And I counted because Drum did, no, this is not the counted, this is your promise card. You are not counted yet. So if media clearly send message to the community, this is the place card, your promise card, this will be tax census, you have to count yourself. And another thing, media should play the role, ad not good enough for our people counted. Every single journalist have to write the article every single week, and I need to see my media headline is a census. Which one not done yet? All media need to do their community duty next 3 months. Census, only census. I'm yelling now, council member. Go to our community event and talk lot of things and appreciate the community. I just yell them. Why you go to state? Why you did not talk about census? How you going to run your district actually without money? What are you talking about? Bengali people great. No, they are not great. You should talk about census. They are not counted yet. Like that kind of. So every single people have role to do the census duty. So we need to be very careful. Tax census, Article 13, undocumented people have no fear to do the census. Children not to be counted. There is a no fear from ICE or someone. Every single thing. And also make sure this is not the census. Which one we collecting as a promise. People have to be part census and let people know. Census Bureau worker only knock door when they saw someone did not actually file their census. And also, we are collecting these because we want to make sure people get mail. If we call someone and we know, oh, they did not get the mail, okay, Census Bureau, please send mail because this person did not get mail yet. So this is something like this. This is not the real census.
Thank you. So I think one of the most important points that was raised there is that we are encouraging everyone to self-respond, meaning respond when you get the letters, because the easiest way to make sure no one knocks on the door is to respond and get your answer in as soon as you can. We'll take questions now.
Yeah, my name is Kawish. I publish a weekly Bengali newspaper for last 29 years for the Bangladeshi people. First, I want to respond to Kazi because since 2018, I'm going to different census meetings in city agencies and other places. Maybe Baga knows, Sona knows, Julie Manning, also some of the programs. And since 2018, I have been printing news on census, the positive news, to convince the community. And she said this is no, she didn't see anything. So that's not true. Last 2 years I have been doing this. Number one. Number two, this is 29 years old newspaper I told you. And I participated in 2000 census. I participated in 2010 census. In 2010, the census started giving advertisement in the community newspapers. I'm talking about community newspapers. From the January, to convince the people, to educate the people, to let the people, encourage how to, why should they do it. But this time, today is end of, this is the first week of March, we haven't received any advertisement, anything else, Yeah. So it is also, I also told in different programs that you have to give the advertisements so that our people, ethnic people, what they do, they don't read American newspaper, they don't watch American television, they read our newspapers because this is the language problem. But we have, I watch this television is running ads, the mainstream ABC.
I can answer that. So we're investing $3 million in local and foreign language media. You're right, the advertisements have not hit yet, but they're coming very soon, like in the next 2 weeks. And there's, part of the reason for that is just the city's fund. So in 2010, the city did no advertising. Mayor Bloomberg spent $0. Zero. Mayor Bloomberg spent $0 on advertising around the census or doing anything around the census. This mayor is spending $40 million, so that's a big difference. But for the advertising, we are going to be advertising very heavily starting in 2 weeks through the end of the census period, through the end of June for us.
Yeah, I also add that Chaya series also gave us 10 full-page ads in 2010. They just started that time. Justice Seema Agnani was the director.
I have a community response actually. This time you did not get any ad yet because maximum time we had fight for the citizenship question go away, then we start fight for money. So we go to Albany with bus full of people, fight back and back the money. Census Bureau actually started their work in the vacation time. Not a single Census Bureau like our coalition did not take a break even the vacation time and do their work to make sure everything in the table, but still we are very late, everything, because our maximum time we have spent for citizenship question.
Next question.
Thank you so much. My name is Shailesh Shrestha. I do produce some person. It's Naroda ji recognized me, and I started my career as a activist transitioning to the media or again back to advocacy and recently working in the RCTR bill, that new bill, non-citizen voting right. The bill number is 1867. I would love to urge all of you, we have 28 council members now, just help us out to just searching the website, our city, our vote, and if you have that ability to reach out, remaining other 6, so we would be shake you to the path in 2/3 majority, and that would be big win for us. My logical point was what I addressed in the passes. So let's go to the core value and our foundation. It's Narmadaji mentioned, we do our own way. That is very uniqueness of Nepali people. And Mariam, I love your way. You've been mentioning that we need to listen more than talking. I have the same problem. I talk too much, but I'm learning day by day. That's the realization. That's the dynamism of people, organization as well. So I would love to work this census definitely. I have no complaint at all. Since 8 years, Trump person is registered one. I haven't got $0 from the city, but I didn't apply elsewhere, so I have no complaint at all. This is my compassionate work. I love progression. And I have one vision. Without winning the Pennsylvania Avenue, we cannot win elsewhere. That's why we have to battle from the top, but we have to work from the bottom up approach all the time. So I agree with Kazi in some point. Okay, we are spreading the Trump here again, the bigotry and this kind of elsewhere. But there's two types of journalism. I always write the blog. You will see my blogs, 90% I'm writing about the NYE, DC, TPS on all this moment, but some would be different. My question to all of you, again, fear-mongering tactics of this right-winger Trump administration, somehow we are fueling that kind of temperament. So what do we have strategically, practically to go to our community, and you appeal us to write the point, to the point, to secure our population so you are safe.
Okay.
Is that any particular line?
So I think
you
the
would
question
suggest
is like
us?
short messaging points
Exactly.
we can go back to our community with. So maybe each person can give a point since we've all thought about this. So Asya, why don't you start?
So I think that, people are scared of the data because they think the data could be used against us, but really the data is used by our communities to help advocate for us as well as for others to advocate for our communities. And that's why, if we don't have the data, we can't make the case to bring services to our communities, we can't bring money to our communities, and we can't better provide services for our community. So that's my biggest piece. If we don't have, I used to do public health research and I would look for data on South Asian communities or South Asian older adults, and there was so little data, you couldn't make the case to create programming. So that data is really important for us to really advocate, and I would say to you, that's like the biggest thing. If we don't have the data, we can't make the case to bring services.
Annette, a quick messaging point?
I would say that we're here, and we need to make it known that we're here. And I think the point was made earlier that even if we can't vote, this is one of those rare opportunities where we can participate.
Yes. Kazi, do you have a quick blurb you can give to encourage people?
I think what is my a big ask for the ethnic media? We have a lot of material, a short material which we are distributing in the community. So everything we have our blogs and file. So if media love to publish that kind of little flyer or every single weekly Bashman's corner something, the census boxes for next 3 months. So we can provide support. They don't have to type, they don't have to write something, we just send it and they just publish it. That will be good collaboration with the media to communicate proper message.
Okay, I have some.
I'm going to let the rest of the panel.
Everyone else has said it, and I think you mentioned very well, right? Our city, our vote. The language you're using about non-citizen voting can be applied to, in some cases, to the census. So I think you do have the skills for that message. I think one thing that I always drive home is that it's about $74 billion to the state every year, purely on census data alone. The population count of who is living here on April 1st, 2020, right? The decennial census. So this is about billions of dollars to our communities.
Amit?
You're
good? Okay.
Yeah.
Nabla?
Yeah, just you mentioned earlier that the money, power and respect. So wherever I go, then my message with the Nepali community. So I mostly South Asian are here, so I will speak in Nepali, just that word. So number, sankhya, then power, after that dollar, then respect, rights, and recognition. So Sankhya, Shakti, Sampati, Samman, Adhikar, and Pahchan.
Thank you. Very amenity.
Yeah, you mentioned fear tactics, and so I just want to point out that that's what they are. They're fear tactics. So are we going to go into hiding because of this? No, we're not. We're not going to be invisible for another 10 years. So it's continuing to resist, and it's continuing to fight back and make sure that we actually do get counted, and we're not going to let this administration keep scaring us.
Thank you. Sir.
My name is Lodi. I'm from Pakistan News. This is the second time we are part of census. I think we are here to make how to success census 2020. My suggestion, and I think everyone from ethnic community, you should give your suggestion and we should listen what you said. We listened already, but I think I have two suggestions. I think 40% our generation, my age generation, women in the house, she's the head of the house, are not that much educated. They cannot go for Facebook and WhatsApp and a lot of other things. I think you should do two things. One is to make a special, their language, Pakistani, Bengali and Hindi, to special supplement for easy language to how to convince the head of the woman that this is nothing wrong to participate, to give all the detail, because I know with my experience, whenever the guy go and knock the door, they see from the hall, it's a different guy from census, they don't know what is the census, and they don't open the door and they say, excuse me, we don't know who you are, so please. Second, in the 4 borough, you should do this seminar to bring all the families in different places. It doesn't matter if you provide the places or we provide our own community location. You should bring the community, especially the families, and teach them what is the census. My suggestion is to you, Mr.
So we're already doing all of those things.
Okay.
So in terms of language access, our materials are available in 24 different languages, including Bangla, Punjabi, Hindi, and Urdu, and Nepali.
Tibetan too.
And I think we are working on Tibetan. So all of the materials are available. If you check our website, nyc.gov/census, we will be continuing to update. By this week, we will have all of the materials in all of the languages. So please, I encourage all of you to visit our website, to go there, and to take a look, and to download them. They're in PDF form. You can download them and print them on your own. As far as the community events are concerned, that's why we're partnering with 157 organizations. So Chaya and Asian American Federation, Adhikar, DRUM, New York Immigration Coalition, are all of our community partners. We've actually given millions of dollars in grants to community organizations to actually hold the same events that you are talking about. And we're actually not, we know that the community leaders and the community members are best suited to actually do those events in languages that are spoken by communities. And so that's why we have resourced the community-based organizations to do that. So.
Related to this, can you, day before yesterday, I think last Friday, the Miller advertising company sent me the Urdu ads just because I told them many times your language is not good. So just check us like all the ethnic paper.
We are.
Whenever you make the ad, at least show us so we can make easy for you.
I think the ads you have already seen are from the Census Bureau. They're not from us. Okay. We have our own system of checking. The Census Bureau does not do the same thing because they don't have community partners the way we do.
Okay,
so.
Sir, you've been very patient.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Abuta here. I'm from Time Television, which is Bangladeshi community television. Last 6 years we are running 24-hour TV, first TV. And then we have a newspaper last 25 years now, Weekly Bangla Patrika. And I think, since last 25 years I'm working with the community. And last census, present census, I think there is anxiety going on, which is, first of all, the Census Bureau itself, last time when they did the census, they used to have a contract with us and they use our media to spread out their message. But this time, they categorically denied that they don't have any budget to for. I don't know the other ethnic media, but I think I received a letter from CENSUS that they are not going to do anything with the ethnic community. I thank Mayor, Bill de Blasio, which he has an executive order of 50% of the media budget is going to spend for the ethnic media. This is a historic decision he made. Kazif was just told, okay, we have a flyer we can send to the media. Being a media person, it's very challenging nowadays to run a media, whether it's print media or electronic media. I think, as Amit mentioned, that the city is trying to accommodate everyone and spread out the message. I think I'm not asking a question. I'm just giving my experience and suggestion that the in roundtable people who are here, organizer, I think you should have a partnership with the media that how we can spread out the message and get the best benefit out of it. And as he mentioned that the mayor's office and city spending money through the that kind of organization, I think it should be crystal. So we could understand also where the money is going, how the community organization they are getting money and where they're spending, whether it's worth it or not.
So
And also
let me take that very quickly. Sorry. So one, the full list of community organizations is on the website. If you go to nyc.gov/census, you can see all the organizations that have received money. As I mentioned, approximately 12% of the organizations serve South Asian communities. On the media piece, I know I mentioned it a few times, but I want to be very clear. We are spending $3 million only on census for local and foreign language media. As I mentioned, those ads, yes, we would have liked to have started them by now, but such is life. As everyone sitting here can tell you, we've all been working very, very hard on this campaign, but we've had some challenges presented by the federal government. So you will start seeing those ads very soon, and it's going to be the largest buy that the city has ever done.
What about the electronic media?
Yes, it includes electronic media.
Because I contacted a few times with mayor office, and a few times they told me we don't have any budget for the.
That's the Census Bureau. That's not us. We're the mayor's office. Two completely different entities.
Okay, we have another question back there.
Question for Mr. Bagga and Mr. Could you demarcate or talk about this fine line between the volunteers talking about the public charge rule? And if the respondents ask you, is it legal or illegal to take public, any kind of benefits? How do you kind of tackle that question to instill kind of, that people actually do have the right answers in a sense?
So I would like someone on the panel to answer that, and then once you've done that, if I could just introduce someone who's
Sure.
here.
So the good news, it sounds weird, right? But the message is the same insofar as we do not need people to open the door to the census. So sir, you were saying, people need to look in the keyhole. They don't. You just need to answer the census when it comes and self-respond at that moment. So the messaging is not actually that different, because with public charge, what we're saying is you don't actually need to engage with the federal government at this moment. And what we're saying around census is when it comes, just answer it, get it out of the way. So it's slightly different. The way in which it's affecting us is it's affecting how our community feels, right? It affects the fears that immigrants are facing. But the need to open the door and actually interact with a person is not there. We want people to fill out the forms when they arrive.
Just to add to that, the newspapers I represent, News Media Times, DC Talk New York, and also the TV station ITV Gold, among other publications. But the question which I hear the most is about the public charge rule, more than a citizenship question, actually. Because people are afraid, people are actually insecure about responding to that. So, if your respondents cannot answer that question, in the right way, I don't think the communication is going to be appropriate.
So recently, just I think last week, the public charge is going to apply, right? Yeah. So many people due to public charge, they are losing Medicaid and their public benefit. So that's why this is their concern. And all the community, they don't have the same level of understanding and same level of access all the information. So we are working low-income worker, and we have to educate everything. And all communities are not coming to our door. So this is our challenge.
So the public chairs, actually, when we go to do the outreach in the street, in the event, or in the grocery shop or restaurant, people ask about public chairs. That time actually we taught them, yeah, public chairs is active. If you want to bring your family member, if you take the public chairs, that will impact you. Talk with your lawyer, and in that case, you have to go back to the community hospital, Almas Hospital, how undocumented people get their health support. So that's why we need more money. That's why you have to be counted. We need more federal resource to run those community hospitals, include more hospital in that service, so you can get your health service without pay extra money if you are low income people.
Amit, you wanted to?
Well, I just on public charge, and I think maybe this is best as a follow-up after we've wrapped. I just want to introduce my colleague, AJ Youssef. Are you here? Hi. So AJ is from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and I think he's actually best suited after we've wrapped up to answer some of your questions.
Can you just quickly go over the time period? We just mentioned self-response period quite a lot.
Yeah, so just to, and we'll take your questions, just to clarify what's going on, as I said at the top of my remarks, starting March 12th, which is scarily enough a week from Thursday, so we can now say things like next week. The mailers will start going out. By March 20th, everyone will have a letter asking them to either fill it out online or use the paper form. 20% of households will get a paper form, or to call. You can call to respond to the census. Between March 12th and April 27th, there will be approximately 5 mailers sent to each household. You will not get that mailer if you have responded, but there will be reminder mailers in that period of time. The 4th mailer will contain a paper form for anyone who has not yet received a paper form. Starting May 13th, that is when the census takers will start knocking on the doors to follow up with people who have not self-responded. Again, our message throughout the panel is that self-response is the best way to fill out the census. Just one point of clarification, everyone calls April 1st Census Day. You can fill out the census starting March 12th. You can go online and fill it out right then and there. Census Day is just the reference point. So when Kazi was saying babies count, babies born up until April 1st count. If your baby is born on April 2nd, they don't count.
Okay. So myself is Manish Bear. I'm representing the Chardikala Time TV. We are the satellite TV station. We are from India, and we have a separate feed for the United States and Canada also. But recently I attended so many sessions with the census and United States and the Sikh representatives bodies. There were so many words, but there was one question they were unable to respond that. Especially she mentioned about there are community who coming to this country, they are not in position to buy a house, but they are living in a basement, they are living in attics. But there is no strong word ki how to stop the landlord, ki they are spreading the misinformation. You don't have to go for the census. If you will go for the census, we will throw you out. There is a word, but how the city or mayor office is going to tackle this issue?
Sure. Well, I can take that for a second, and then I'll turn it over to you. So I'm very glad you asked this question. We are very concerned as the mayor's office about this particular issue. And actually, much of our advertising that's going to be coming out in South Asian languages, in East Asian languages, and Spanish is going to be focused very specifically on this issue. We want to let every single person know that no matter what your housing situation is, it doesn't matter if you live in a basement, it doesn't matter if there are 10 people living in one small apartment, every single person can and must do the census. Nobody else has to know if you've done it. You can go online, you can do it yourself. It is okay if multiple people in the same household respond to the census. The Census Bureau will accept those responses. You can go online, put in your address, and you can respond to the census. The City of New York worked very hard over the last few years to come up with a list of 192,000 addresses. This includes units that are not necessarily lawful, to give to the Census Bureau to say, please make sure that you have this in your database. And we want everyone to know that. So the Census Bureau accepted 99% of those addresses. So nobody should feel any fear about responding to the census, no matter what your housing situation is.
Same support to your word. Every single community organization doing outreach and signing place card with people, and this place card have their phone number, their addresses, and as well their email. So these place cards we are putting one data, and when census will go live, we'll call every single person, let us know they get mail or not. If landlord or any kind of co-housing people miss their mail, so we'll help them to give online website address so they can count themselves. So that's the reason community organization get money to do outreach every day.
My2020census.gov, sorry, we should just say that.
Yeah.
That's it.
We'll take one last question. We're running out of time. Oh no, okay, we'll do two. So.
My name is Arshad Awan. I represent Pakistani Community TV channel. My question is that NYC, our Census Bureau, is including South Asian media to spread the message?
Yes.
Okay.
So $3 million investment.
I want to make sure.
By the mayor's office.
Okay.
Is there a deadline to all this? Like,
Oh, yeah, I didn't finish that part. So the response portal stays open until July 31st of this year. That is an important message because even once the census takers come, you don't have to answer the door. You can still fill out the form online or the paper form. So you have until July 31st. At this point, that's the date we're being told. Who knows?
and what happens after July 31st if you haven't responded?
That's it.
In the summer's busy.
Yeah,
With the city, the federal, because this is the first time we're doing it online, they're actually going to be able to track response rates, self-response rates at the census tract level, and we're hoping the city and community organizations can target areas to see, oh, did someone not get the mailing, did things get lost, or even just to be do more advocacy efforts. So I think we really want to stay on top of those areas to know. There's parts of, I was at Brighton Beach Saturday, they only had a 36% self-response rate, where I live in east side of Manhattan and they, were in the 77%. That doesn't, I think that we really want to encourage communities to make sure that they participate and know how important it is to participate freely and independently.
Mita and Amit, I think it might be worthwhile talking about the language issue. So given that the census is not being translated in any South Asian languages, what are folks supposed to do when they can't read it?
What I mentioned this at the top, middle of my remarks, which is there are videos available in various languages. So you can go, for instance, to the Census Bureau's website itself. They have videos in 59 languages, including South Asian languages. APIA has census explainer videos. As Narbada said, they have dubbed over the PSA videos in Nepali. So, and you here, the media, you can take the existing videos and dub over them and create that content. And when we're worried about limited proficiency or literacy, the ability to have these videos that you can then put on Facebook, put on YouTube, send through WhatsApp, that is an opportunity to really spread the word. So technology can really be our friend in this instance. Amit, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I'll just try to quickly add. अगर आप इंग्लिश नहीं बोल सकते हैं या को पढ़नी नहीं आती है, तो ये जो सब ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस इस टेबल पे बैठे हैं आपके साथ, जो ड्रम है या छाया है या एशियन अमेरिकन फेडरेशन है, इन सब के पास ऑफिसेज हैं, आप खुद जा सकते हैं, कंप्यूटर्स हैं, टैबलेट्स हैं, अगर आपको ट्रांसलेशन की ज़रूरत है आपको वहाँ मिलेगी, आप वहाँ मदद ले सकते हो। और जो भी चाहे जानकारी उनको मिल सकती है सेंसस ब्यूरो के वेबसाइट पे। जैसे नीता ने कहा था 59 ज़बानों में हैं, वीडियोस हैं, गाइड्स हैं, जिसमें सब कुछ लिखा हुआ है कि सेंसस क्या है, सेंसस इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट क्यों है, सेंसस करती क्या है, कैसे कर सकते हो, कैसे पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हो। तो हम सबको ये बोलते हैं कि आप ज़रूर सेंसस की वेबसाइट पे जाइए और पूरी आपको वहाँ जानकारी मिलेगी।
I want to add on to that.
Please.
हम सब आप लोगों के मदद करेंगे. And that's where I stopped with the all of the New York Public Library system, the Queens Library system, and the Brooklyn Library systems are all participating, and they are hosting resource hubs and pop-up centers at the local branches. And what's really smart about what they're doing is they've actually hired navigators who speak in the languages that are the most common in those neighborhoods. So if you don't want to watch
hiring.
it,
Some of them are still
yeah,
hiring.
they're actually having trouble hiring.
Yeah,
and filling
that's
some
my
of those
library told me.
positions.
Yeah.
But don't forget about the libraries, because they also got a lot of money from the city government, and they're playing an awesome active role too.
हमने 110 लाइब्रेरीज को पैसे दिए हैं सिर्फ सेंसस के लिए। तो जहाँ भी आप रहते हो न्यूयॉर्क में, आप जो भी आपकी बाजू में लाइब्रेरी है आप वहाँ जा सकते हो, वहाँ आपको सेंसस की जानकारी मिल सकती है, वहाँ आप सेंसस ले भी सकते हो। उनके सब के पास कंप्यूटर्स हैं, टैबलेट्स हैं, और जो भी भाषा आप बोलते हैं आपको वहाँ पे मदद मिल सकती है।
Yeah. Something to add? Okay.
Yes,
We
yes,
also, we also so আমরাও প্ল্যান করতেছি একটা পপ আপ সেন্টার আমাদের অফিসে রাখবো কিনা, বিকজ আমাদের যারা মেম্বার, আমাদের যারা কমিউনিটি, যাদের কাছে ইন্টারনেট নাই, যাদের বাসায় ওয়াইফাই নাই, যারা বেসমেন্টে থাকে, ক্যাব ইউজ করতে পারে না, বয়স্ক মানুষ, তাদেরকে কিভাবে সাহায্য করা যায়। আমাদের কনসিডারেশনে আছে যে আমাদের অফিসে 2টা কম্পিউটার দিয়ে আমাদের ওয়ার্কার যারা তারা সাহায্য করবে কিনা আমরা চিন্তা করতেছি, কারণ এটা তো অবশ্যই একটা লিমিটেশন এইবার टेक्नोलोजी सेन्सस করার কারণে।
तपाईहरुलाई नेपाली भाषाको लागि केही अप्ठ्यारो पर्यो अथवा टिबेटन भाषाको लागि केही अप्ठ्यारो पर्यो भने अधिकारको अफिसमा आउनुहोस्। अधिकारको ठेगाना थाहा पाएन भने 7189371117 मा फोन गर्नुहोस् र हाम्रो अधिकारमा चाहिँ हब सेन्टर र 4वटा पपअप सेन्टर पनि छ र तपाईहरुलाई हामी स्याटरडे पनि अफिस खोलेर यसको सेवा पुर्याउने छौं।
Wonderful. I think that concludes our day. Thank you all so very much, and we appreciate your help in being community partners and getting out how important this is for all of us.
नाज़रीन, सेंसस ब्यूरो में आज एक बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट मीटिंग हुई है, राउंड टेबल, और इसमें मोहतरमा मरियम रऊफ़ हैं हमारे साथ। मैं इनसे ये पूछता हूँ आप लोगों के लिए कि वेबसाइट पे कब जो है इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल होगी कि लोग मरदमशुमारी में हिस्सा ले सकें, अपना एंट्री कर सकें।
मैं इंग्लिश में जवाब दूंगी, ठीक है? The census website will be up starting March 12th, and that's when people will start receiving letters in the mail. It's going to be a black and white envelope with the 2020 census logo on it. Please make sure you don't throw it away. Open it up. It will have a link on it and an ID code. You can use that to get online and complete the form. Starting March 12th, the people will start receiving the mailings.
मरियम साहिबा कह रही है कि मार्च 12 से आपको एवरीबॉडी, हर शख्स को मेल मिलेगी सेंसस ब्यूरो से, और उसमें आप अपनी एंट्री करके भेज दें, और उसके और इस तरह आप भी काउंट होंगे, और जब एवरीबॉडी इज काउंटेड तो सबका फ़ायदा होगा, है ना?
जी।